Origin stories are some of the most iconic and easy to understand stories relating to superheroes. And for as long as there have been comic book movies, a good chunk of them always focus on the origin of these iconic heroes. And there are just as many superhero movies focusing on their conception of their powers and their early days as a hero. There are just as many where they throw you into a universe with these pre-established heroes by the start of the movie, without having to deal with the common tropes of an origin story. You know, like the hero being a normal dude in the wrong place at the wrong time, with a freak accident or a personal incident that changes them for the better, which provides motivation as a hero. Many heroes adopt a secret identity to live a double life, and must overcome initial reluctance or fear to embrace their powers, and the ensuing destiny. You know, like the original Spider-Man, or Into the Spider-Verse, or the first Iron Man, or Blue Beetle, or Steel.
Are you not entertained? Do you not recognize what I've done as a Laker?
And today, I just wanted to ramble on about some comic book movies that skip the origin, and just happen to be the first film in the franchise, because it's an interesting writing challenge to communicate to the audience. And which of these films do this oh so right, and oh so wrong? And we'll rank it on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being no good, 2 being mediocre, 3 being average, 4 being pretty good, and 5 being fan-frickin-tastic. Now, these will be scaled on how well they introduce these heroes to an audience, while having to balance a compelling story, but also specifying the challenges the hero faces in whatever period of their superhero career. Not how well written the movies are. And I'll be going through some examples from the release order, so let's splash right into things. I know it's not summer anymore, but I just feel like going for a little swim, you know? Please don't take this away from me. The earliest example I could find of this is from the 1998 movie Blade. And this film also happens to be the first really successful Marvel movie. Unless if you count Howard the Duck. Well, I mean, that film wasn't really successful. I mean, this film kinda has everything you need from a movie. Vampires, cheesy late 90s CGI blood, Wesley Snipes. But we're not here to talk about the vampire equivalent of White Men Can't Jump. We got a job to do today. So how well does Blade handle this standard? Pretty damn successfully, if I do say so myself. The film begins with a civilian getting dragged by a random woman into a nightclub, probably hoping to get laid. But what he doesn't expect is that this whole nightclub is overrun by vampires. And there aren't cocktails on the menu. He is the menu. And let's just say, he's more than a shared entree. Okay, that was a stupid bit. Let's move on. Anyways, right before this guy becomes more deader than the Twilight franchise, he literally runs into Blade. And in this one scene alone, this pretty much portrays everything you need to know about this character. He likes to fucking kill vampires. A little too much if you ask me. Anyways, Blade beats the absolute crap out of these vampires, and you totally see why he's a badass, and has some insane kills by the end of the scene. Plus, you get to know everything you need to know, and you don't even give a shit about his origin. I mean, why bother? What the hell is Blade's origin anyways? Let's search this up, shall we? Born from a mother ravaged by a vampire and gifted superhuman abilities from Morbius the living vampire. Holy shit! Morbius! We're starting the list off with a bang, and for a movie that didn't make me even question how Blade became Blade, I'd say that deserves a 5. Next, we got the original X-Men movie, one of the most influential comic book films of all time. If it wasn't for the double whammy that was this and the original Spider-Man movie, I don't know if we'd be getting this many comic book movies like we do nowadays. I mean, hell, this original cast is coming back for Avengers Doomsday in the big 2026, so that's gotta be saying something. However, after taking the nostalgia goggles off, I gotta say, this movie is kinda average. I mean, the story and writing is nothing special, and I think the cast is pretty much perfect. But I can't forgive them for butchering my boy Cyclops like that. And those suits. Woof. Like, oh, would you have preferred yellow spandex? You know what? Yes, I would have preferred yellow spandex. If Deadpool and Wolverine taught us one thing, it's that the audience is totally chill with comic-accurate costumes. Would they really look that bad? Brian, where the hell are you now? Oh. Yeesh. Looking past all of that, how does this film introduce the X-Men to the audience without an origin story? Well, not too bad in my opinion. And that is thanks to the common X-Men trope of a POV character. And the character we follow in this film is the never overused Wolverine, played by Hugh Jackman. And X-Men has always used a POV character in one way or another, typically a younger mutant, like Kitty Pryde, Jubilee, or Roberto, etc. And in this case, they use a character who's the opposite of young. And Rogue's there too, I guess. I mean, the movie does focus on her for a fat minute before Wolverine gets introduced. And I totally get it! Wolverine is cool as hell! And this was way before they overused him too much in these movies. And I think it works. And it feels like as the audience, we're seeing all of this for the first time alongside him. And it works pretty well. However, sometimes, I feel like I just want to see spotlight on other characters. Like, man, the relationship between Professor X and Magneto is super interesting. I wish we got more of that in this movie. If only there was a film dedicated to the rise and downfall of their friendship that could also serve as an origin story for the X-Men team. Man, a boy can dream. Anyways, it's not that bad, and I would just say, like the movie itself, I'll give it a 3 for average. Not terrible, but it gets the job done. Speaking of terrible... Man, what a forgettable Marvel movie. Even during my MCU rewatches, I always skip this. But I guess not anymore, because stupid fucking useless Captain America 4 is secretly a sequel to this. For some reason? This movie is in a weird situation, because this is a sequel/soft reboot to Ang Lee's 2003 Hulk movie. So does Ang Lee's Hulk technically count as the first ever MCU movie?
No! No!
I mean, this movie doesn't have the same cast or narrative structure that's referenced, and most of the events that happened in Ang Lee's film probably happened or played out in a similar fashion to the MCU. What do you want me to say? I mean, I don't even care about this film that much. The Incredible Hulk is far from my favorite MCU movie, and Hulk is far from my favorite Marvel character. This is probably the movie I have the least to say about, and every 5 seconds there's just a stupid Hulk reference. Yes, I know who Lou Ferrigno is, movie, but thanks for telling me anyways. Gee, I wonder what those purple shorts are supposed to be. I know this sounds off topic, but I hate it when a superhero movie or TV show has a scene where they put on a comic-accurate version of their iconic costume, and start looking at themselves in the mirror, and then say, "This is too colorful for my own case." Or, "Gee, when did I start shopping at a Claire's? LMAO!" And then fucking take it off. And then wear like the most generic sweatshirt ever. It's like, oh yeah, people will totally find the fucking normal-ass Goofy Goober more interesting than the actual version that the comic is associated with. It's like, oh yeah, fuck the comics, because who the hell actually reads anymore in the big 2-5? Always gotta have AI generate our stories for us, while a dirty clanker is swaddling us in your arms, while drinking AI robot cow milk, while falling asleep like a little baby. Aww. Wait, what the hell were we even talking about? I'll just give it a 2. Next we got kind of a hot take, even though I absolutely love this movie, and it has so much sauce. And if you ask me, this is my personal favorite live-action Spider-Man movie. And I really need to emphasize live-action Spider-Man movies, because you need to remember that the Spider-Verse movies exist. But this is not why we're here. Oh no, because this version of Spidey completely skips the origin story. And I totally get why. Because the previous 2 iterations both covered the origin story. And I feel like if you went up to any Yahoo off the street and asked him to name Spider-Man's origin at gunpoint, let me just say you won't be firing off any bullets that night. However, this criteria still needs to have the hero's origin be addressed in the movie, and reflected upon. However, for some weird, random reason that I can't understand for the life of me, why Marvel decided to do this, but for the MCU Spider-Man, they have not addressed Uncle Ben once. The only mention I could find of the guy was in a blink and you'll miss it Easter egg moment in Spider-Man Far From Home. I mean, hell, it's like the guy never existed in the first place, because he's not even the guy who says the great power comes great responsibility speech. It's Aunt May. Now, I wouldn't find this such a big deal if this was already an experienced Spider-Man, who's in college, or hell, in his mid-20s. Then, we wouldn't be having this conversation. But this is a Spider-Man who is still very early on in his career, where Uncle Ben plays his biggest role, and Peter takes his uncle's advice the most. But I guess they kinda wanted Tony Stark to play the father figure role for Peter in this world, to differentiate them between Tobey and Andrew. But come on, what's wrong with a boy having 2 father figures in his life? Come on, Disney, let the Spider-Man have 2 dads. Or is that too woke for you? I guess he kind of exists if you count the 2024 cinematic disaster piece, Madam Web, where we have a version of Uncle Ben, played by Adam Scott. Which honestly, I could see the guy pulling off MCU Uncle Ben if Marvel really wanted him to. And he's around the same age as Marissa Tomei. Plus, who doesn't love Adam Scott for Pete's sakes? I absolutely adore him in Severance. And come on, who doesn't love... Do you think a depressed person can make this? But hey, why does this even matter? Because this movie isn't even MCU canon, as much as the cancelled popcorn buckets wanted to confusingly tell you otherwise. It's the stinky Spider-Man spin-off Sonyverse, and as much as I love this movie, it has got to be a damn shame on how messy and convoluted this iteration is without Uncle Ben. So for that, I might have to give it a no-go for forgetting this integral part of Spider-Man's origin. Remember, it's not how well written the movies are, but this is such a big deal, just like other aspects of some of the most famous superhero origin stories, like Green Lantern without Abin Sur, or Jane Foster without her cancer, or, God forbid, Dragonfly without his Uncle Albert, the worst tragedy of them all. Let's hope the next one is better. The Batman is probably my favorite comic book movie, visually speaking. I mean, fucking look at Gotham. It looks way more sexy than the homie glazed up in baby oil. Forget that part. Anyways, the Batman does a great job introducing this iteration of the character, and skips to Bruce's second year as a vigilante, which I find really fascinating because we never get to see Batman in the second year of his career. In media, it's either year 1 stories or year 11 teen, and he's already had a bunch of Robins and already established with his allies and enemies. However, director Matt Reeves is built a little different, and assumed that the audience was already familiar with the story of the Wayne murders, and the decision to become Batman, using that shared knowledge to explore a new, more emotionally complex story of the hero's journey. And they still handle the origin in a really interesting way. Instead of this being the start of his story, you know, the trauma of his parents, death remains a raw, open wound that drives his actions, blah 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 blah, Batman. Robert Pattinson's Bruce Wayne is portrayed as socially withdrawn and obsessed with his mission, which, on my first couple viewings, I really didn't like this. It kinda just made Bruce Wayne look like a big ol' emo boy who didn't like anybody. Instead, uses the Batman persona to cope with his unresolved pain, and over the course of the film, Bruce confronts the destructive nature of his vengeance-driven mission, especially after witnessing the Riddler's followers adopt the same motive as him. His journey culminates not in becoming Batman, but in a rebirth that shifts his purpose from personal revenge to inspiring hope in a broken city. There's this one shot in the film that I really think about on a personal basis, and really describes to me what Batman truly is. With the son of the politician sitting alone, experiencing the same feelings of loss that Bruce felt all those years ago. And this boy looks up staring at Batman, and it cuts to a close-up of Bruce himself. I like to think of this scene as Bruce imagining himself as the boy, just like that one fateful night in Crime Alley that he experienced all those years ago. And that is cinema right there. And for questioning my entire sanity relating to filmmaking, this movie obviously gets a 5, because damn! Let's hope the next movie is brighter in tone. Oh wow, this is way more uplifting in tone. Now we're moving on to a more recent example of this, James Gunn's Superman, a movie that I actually just rewatched at the time of writing this, because who knows how long editing and recording it's going to take. And I still absolutely adore this movie. From the amazing cast, to the awesome visual effects, to a message about kindness that we really need in 2025. In conclusion, this film is a massive slam dunk for DC, and a great sign for the future of James Gunn's DCU. But this is not what we're here to talk about today. How well does this film handle introducing the 11th live-action version of Superman to a new audience? And how well does it do it in a way that's never been seen before in live action? Instead, this movie just throws us in the middle of the action, with the only form of context is some brief Star Wars-like title cards. And I honestly really love this approach. It feels really fresh and unique. It gives off the vibes of reading a random Superman issue off the spinner rack for the first time, and finding some pure gold. But as a feature film, for the overall DCU in general, it feels so nice just to be thrown into a DC universe with superheroes already established, and we can see citizens reacting to superhero battles and team-ups as a normal everyday thing. And it feels even more satisfying as an audience member because we don't need 6 to 7 movies to build up a world with already established superheroes, and we can just trust the audience to understand that, hey, superheroes are already a huge deal in this universe without any further knowledge, and somehow it doesn't feel confusing at all. Now, discussing Superman's actual origin story in this universe, which does something pretty different compared to every other iteration of Superman, because in this universe, Superman's biological parents from Krypton sent him to Earth with a corrupted final part of their message, hoping he would one day rule and continue the Kryptonian heritage by repopulating on Earth. Gross. Now, I'm a little 50-50 on this decision. On one hand, I'm not the biggest fan of this because when Superman was first created, Krypton was first based off of Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster's Jewish heritage, and the rise of fascism in the 1930s. However, on the other hand, I like how this movie sticks with it and doesn't have a scene in the end with it turning out that Lex faked the message the whole time. And I really like how much Gunn is sticking to this decision, with him stating in interviews that they're gonna stick with this character change. Plus, this feels super fresh and unique, and differentiates this version of Superman compared to the tons and tons of other iterations of this character. Even though it seems like there was a cut of this movie where the message was faked by Lex, based on this little line during the Maxwell Lord cameo, which might have just been the editor not getting the right memo or something. Oops, somebody's getting fired. I'm gonna give this a 4 because why not? It needed more goddamn Mr. Terrific. And here we are to the most recent example of this. Even more recent than Superman, by 2 weeks. But hey, an accomplishment is still an accomplishment nonetheless. And this movie is kind of the gold standard for introducing these characters. Same like Spider-Man, the 2 previous live-action iterations of the teams both focused heavily on the origin, and this one is just jumping right into things, which feels really nice. Plus, this movie being the most comic-accurate Fantastic Four movie feels really nice. Anyways, the film spends the first couple minutes in a montage explaining the Four's origin, by using the Ted Gilbert Show to introduce the audience to the Four's origin, and a brief summary of their superhero career. I love this. It only takes a couple minutes and then you're fully caught up with the Four's origin, and you can just jump straight into the action. However, for the rest of the movie, I have some mixed thoughts. I absolutely love the 1960s universe present here, but honestly, does it really contribute that much to the story? It's sort of just there to distract the audience's attention with this new world never present before in the MCU, and it is a nice change of pace. But what would have really changed if this movie was set in the modern day, or samurai times, or literally any other time period? Now, I don't want to be a negative Nelly or a passive-aggressive Peter, but gosh darn it, this world is too cool not to play around with. I hope after the MCU resets after Secret Wars, the overall world takes some visual cues from this movie. And don't get me started on that post-credit scene. The Doom tease was cool and all, but I get a lot less excited when I realize it's RDJ under the mask. And this was most likely what Franklin was seeing. And was it just me, or did nobody cheer in my theater when this reveal happened? It was dead quiet in there, with me just turning an awkward look to my girlfriend, and that was the extent of it. And that was on opening weekend too. It wasn't like when I went to see No Way Home for the first time, 3 weeks after the movie came out, where people already knew about the big reveals, and people were probably coming back for their second, maybe even third rewatch, and the only person cheering was some chubby 12-year-old. That was me. I was the 12-year-old. But no, this was the first Saturday of the movie's release. Is the MCU really out of the public consciousness that much that nobody gives a shit? I wouldn't blame you either. The multiverse saga is such a mess narratively compared to the Infinity Saga. Also, off topic, but after I watched this movie, I thought about how if the 2000s Fantastic Four movies ever covered Franklin Richards, they would totally have had Franklin be one of those weird CGI babies. And I'm so pissed off we missed out on that. To wrap things up, I'm gonna give this film a 4 for fan-frickin-tastic, and the movie itself like a 6 out of 10. We may not be back, MCU fans. Anyways, that's pretty much all I wanted to cover today. Don't really have anything else to say about this. I really hope a lot more superhero movies adapt this, because even though I do love the origin story for heroes, I do think it's really overused nowadays. Maybe use it for like the obscure superheroes with like really weird origins. Like, when are we gonna get a fucking Firestorm movie? Because people are gonna be so weirded out by that. The next video is not going to be the Sonyverse video. I know I keep on promising that, but I think it's just way too big of a video for me to handle right now, because I need to watch 6 movies, and I have so much research. I've written a script already, but the thing is, I haven't even watched a single movie yet, and it's already 3 pages long, so I think it's going to take a while. Yeah, it's definitely just going to be on and off again. I also have to watch these movies, which is going to be really, really hard. So anyways, in conclusion, like, subscribe, don't let the bed bugs bite, and also, most importantly, read a goddamn comic book. Get off of your fucking TikTok thingamajigga and stop doom scrolling, please.